Thursday, the 8th of January 2015. Now, 2 years ago, President John Mahama took office. In his first State of the Nation address to Parliament, the President, riding on the wave of the ruling NDC's Better Ghana agenda, promised, and I quote, to work hard to place us on the right path and lead us over the hurdles and past the obstacles that might threaten to keep us from meeting our goals. His main areas of focus were putting people first, a strong and resilient economy, expanding infrastructure, transparent and accountable governance. They say a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So, is your Ghana better today, 2 years on? That's our focus on Agenda tonight. My name is Matilda Asante Esiedu. Agenda is brought to you in association with Melcom, where Ghana shops. Providence Insurance is now Old Mutual, and Nero Natural Mineral Water. Let's meet our guests in the studio. We have two powerful men with us this evening. We've got the Majority Leader in Parliament, the Honourable Alban Bagbin. He's also the Member of Parliament for Nadole Kalio. Also in the studios with us, we have the Honourable Osei Che Mensah-Bonsu. He's the Minority Leader in Parliament. He's also the MP for Swami. Gentlemen, good evening to you. Thank you for coming. Is it a coincidence that you're both wearing smocks tonight? I couldn't help but notice that.
Well, I began the day with it. And it's carried through. I've not been able to go to the house since leaving at 7 in the morning. But he strives and struggles to, even though I'm a shade older than he is.
Now we're talking age.
He strives to, take after me. So, but it's forgivable. So forgive him.
So you think he's trying to, obviously?
I should think.
And what's your reason or excuse?
Well, the young man is following our footsteps. So.
Okay. Everybody is older. Somebody is younger following the other. That's fine. Thank you for coming. We're obviously going to put this discussion in perspective. Let's hear President Mahama making some comments in his first State of the Nation address, and then we'll come to the studio.
Change does not happen overnight. And sometimes, despite whatever progress has been put in motion, it will appear to be darkest before the dawn of the new day makes that progress visible. In such times, I count on you, my countrymen and women, to maintain the faith and trust that you have placed in me as your president. And I promise you, I will not let you down. Our momentary difficulties must only serve in strengthening this our collective resolve towards a future of limitless possibilities. Despair is not an option, and we shall not make excuses. I know that I lead a nation of great people who have it within them to establish that fair and just society of opportunities for all, and to this I dedicate my entire efforts.
That was President John Dramani Mahama. So with that quotation in context, change doesn't happen overnight. Let's get into the substance of our discussion. Let me start with you, the Honourable Che Mensah-Bonsu. What's your own assessment, general overview, 2 years after President Mahama took office?
Well, 2 years, I would say, he's started some initiatives, honestly, whether or not they are adequate is for the entire country to judge. In my own estimation, the president hasn't done much, and there is tremendous room for improvement. The president keeps telling Ghanaians that the fundamentals of the economy are strong by what he has been doing for the past 6 years. The reality is that the contrary is the case, because by every measure of economic indicators that we apply to assess the performance of this administration over the past 6 years, it's been woeful.
Okay, we're talking within the context of 2 years, just for the benefit of our viewers.
2 years at the point of his rebirth, because he continued from President Mills' administration for I think 6 months or so. So when he was reborn as the president, what was the growth rate? if you use the GDP growth rate to assess them, we are cascading downwards. If you use interest rates, things are getting bad. Inflation, things are getting worse. The gross international reserves, we are climbing down. The net reserves, now 2 weeks. So, by every indication, and as I was saying this morning, compare what obtains in the sub-region. The president these days is leaving the sub-region and relating to Europe and Americas. We are in West Africa. And whenever we have done a budget, we have related to the West African situation. For the first time under his rule, in fact, 2013 and 2014, the 10 indicators that are used to judge or to measure the performance of countries in the West African Monetary Zone, Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Gambia, these ones are non-oil producing. And for the first time in the history of this country, 20 years, 2013 was the first year that we missed all 10 of the criteria. And 2014, it has continued. And the shame of it, in the budget of the 2014, for the first time in the history of this country, they decided not to fill the league table to assess our performance. So clearly, in the context of economic performance, we are not doing well. We are spiraling downwards, even with the inclusion of oil. And that's the tragedy.
Okay.
But all is not yet lost. I believe that we can gather ourselves up, and with the proper leadership and direction, we'll be able to bounce back.
Let's hear the majority leader. Your assessment 2 years on, he seems to suggest, there's been some projects and developments, but when it comes to the crux of the matter, economy, we haven't done well.
Well, I've listened to my colleague. I think that he's just restating what he said this morning in his press conference.
In his review, the minorities' review of the budget.
Yes, which was what he submitted as the winding up or summary of the submissions of the minority when we debated the budget.
But is that an inaccurate position?
Last year. Well, don't forget that His Excellency the President took over at a very difficult time. 2012 was, for the first time in the history of the nation, a very sad moment for us as a country. We did not only lose a sitting president, we also lost a former vice president, and both were state funerals. And it was also in the same 2012 that we held an election. And so when he took over in 2013, there was definitely an overhang of the death situation of 2012. And that is why he's been struggling to get us back on a good footing. And so it's not the making of His Excellency the President, but it's the general performance of the whole country as a result of the things that happened in 2012. In 2012 itself, because we decided to opt for peace, we had to overshoot the budget. You recall that we never budgeted for these verification machines. We never did budget for it. But because there was insistence that no verification, no vote, it had to be taken on board. So apart from the other sad moment of the country, we also had to spend in order to maintain peace in the country. So at the end of 2012, we had a very large budget deficit, for the first time said to be hitting around 14 to 15%.
Was that largely due to verification machines, or there were other factors?
There are other factors, definitely, and I'm mentioning some of them.
Sure.
And so he's been trying to let us close this gap, and it's not been easy because the expectations are quite high. We also inherited some very difficult programs that were started during the former regime, and definitely they had to be completed. For example, I mentioned to them about the Gang of Four routes, which were very key major routes that were very important to 2 cities, Accra and Kumasi, and at the state at which they were under construction, we were just compelled to complete them.
Which is what governments are expected to do.
Definitely, when they were started, definitely we are expected to continue with them. We were also by the Constitution enjoined to continue with them. And the reality is that those projects could not be ignored because they interrupted a lot of free flow of traffic. But the important thing is that they were started on the GOG without any PIN. And
Government of Ghana, you mean?
Yes, Government of Ghana budget without any allocation of money. Okay, and therefore, the government had to look for money to pay for those projects.
I hear you. And so, as I imagine, when the NPP or whoever else comes to power next, there will be projects like that governments have to continue to...
You've not gotten the issue. The issue is that when you start projects, particularly huge projects like that, or construction of major roads, you do it not on the GOG. Because government of Ghana cannot generate that revenue to be able to complete those projects. You have usually to go and source for funding.
Okay, so what has that got to do with the current state of affairs as far as the economy is concerned?
Because you're compelled now to spend. Instead of you focusing on now bridging the gap, reducing the deficit, you also have to go in now for more money to spend. And therefore the difficulty in trying to bridge the budget, that is the issue I'm raising. Now, if you are not able to get the economy stabilized, you definitely have challenges in getting other things on board. But you are also compelled, it's imperative to continue with these projects. You also have to respond to some of the critical needs of the people.
And again, which is what governance is about.
Exactly, which is what governance is about. And so that has been the situation.
So your own assessment, generally, an honest assessment, is that what? It's been difficult because government has had to find projects.
No, it's very difficult because of the situation, rather from 2012. If you go through the GDP growth rates, which he's been citing, you see that averagely it was around 9.9, averagely 9.9 until 2012. And from 2012, 2013, 2014, we've been declining. And I'm trying to explain why the decline.
Okay, so that's by way of the economy, but there are other areas that I'm sure we can look at. For instance, the critics of the government say that the government, in managing the economy, has not managed it well, to the point that even in managing the currency, they still didn't do a good job, and that is why we are where we are today. Our CD has continued to decline, albeit we have some stability now. What is the rationale for that as well?
You know, the value of a currency is the value of the services and products of the country. It has to do with productivity.
Sure.
And so productivity basically is based on investment. You need to invest on the economy. And now if you are now focused to stabilize because of this deficit financing, there will be difficulty in trying to invest more, to produce more, to support the currency. You understand? And so that has been the challenge in the country now. Because of the earlier situation, what I explained, with this large deficit financing, definitely it will erode the value of your currency. And so once we are struggling to stabilize that, you have these issues of inflation, depreciation of the currency, and therefore, because you are not investing more, the GDP growth rate will have to decline. And so these are just some of the signs of the difficulty in struggling to handle the economy.
Okay, the Honourable Chairman, so we've talked a bit about the economy, we've talked about inflation, you've talked about growth rates. Understandably, there's been decline. But do you see, in terms of direction, policy-wise, any specific indicators that show that this could be stemmed?
First of all, let me explain that my colleague spoke about deficit financing. That's been the trend in our governance. What was abnormal in 2012 was not deficit financing.
What was it?
It was over expenditure. I think we should get the connect right. It was over
Which
expenditure.
Is not peculiar to NDC government. We've had over expenditure in election years consistently.
I agree. But where we have over expenditure, over, let's say, 10% of what has been budgeted is abnormal, which explains why for 2012 alone, and indeed the over expenditure was humongous in the last 4 months before the conduct of the elections, and it goes to altogether about 8 billion. That is unprecedented, and its spiraling effect will be felt not that year, the year after, 2 years after, even 3 years after. So that's one major thing that's afflicting us. The second thing is the borrowing that we are doing. I am one of the people who agree that as a nation, certainly we have to borrow.
Even as individuals, we have to borrow.
As individuals. But as an individual, you don't go and borrow to buy a private jet, because you know that you cannot fund it or pay for it in due time.
Unless you have a business case for it that can make money.
Yes, so you cut your cloth according to your own size. That is what management of the economy is.
But the president, in responding to these criticisms, says that these monies have been invested in projects in the housing.
Are we sure? I'll tell you. The borrowing, 94% of borrowing goes into recurrent expenditure.
Okay.
94%. So it means that we are borrowing to feed ourselves. And if we are not investing adequately, we can have a problem. And my colleague and I, we have always been talking about the fact that, yes, even where we need to borrow, let's exercise some patience, do proper due diligence to ensure that as a country we have money for even the capital investment that we do.
Isn't that what Parliament is supposed to achieve?
Parliament is supposed, and I'm happy that you quote that phraseology. Parliament is supposed to do that.
You're supposed to ensure that.
Unfortunately, and I wouldn't say it's an indictment on Parliament, because Parliament puts in a request for monies to be released to do these things, to engage consultants to help us really analyze and probe into projects and programs. Unfortunately, it's difficult. Of course, the usual excuse is, well, what is contained in the basket may not be.
We have a general scarcity of resources.
Absolutely,
that's
but
what you're talking about.
What needs to be done needs to be done.
But isn't it ironical? I don't want us to dwell on this. Isn't it ironical that when it comes to personal emoluments and benefits of parliamentarians, that Parliament somehow manages to procure and secure, and yet when it comes to things that should facilitate your duties and your responsibilities, we hear these choruses.
I wasn't expecting you to go on this line, because people who are really informed about this and follow proceedings, the conduct of business in Parliament, would know that it is not only issues in issues relating to ourselves that we agree.
That's where we see a lot of agreement.
No, because
even though there are other areas where
the last time before we exited, what bill were we considering? The GIDA bill. Ask him who made a lot of input into it. Because we want to improve the regime. Which is what we pay you to do, by the way. So precisely. We don't want to dwell on this. So but you are raising the issue like others. We agree when it comes to personal welfare. It's not true. Now, the substantive matters, we are talking about the direction. Exactly. The direction of the country. The president says they're investing in a lot of projects. There's water, infrastructure, hospitals, roads, expansion projects of, if we have to judge the president, if I have to judge the president, because you see, the current budget, for instance, the budget is a work program of government. Sure. And what is in development? Development ultimately is supposed to reflect in the standing of individuals or the collective of the people in a country. The standard of living of people in this country really is going down. The cost of living, rather, is going up. Unemployment is spiraling. What should be the pillars that should generate employment in this country? Agriculture and industry. We all do know that agriculture is not doing well. In this year's budget, the lead organ of agriculture is logging, is lumbering. That is pushing agricultural growth. What does it mean? At the turn of the last century, the forest cover of this country was 8.5 million hectares. Today, as we speak, it's about 700,000 hectares. So we are depleting our forests. So if the budget is admitting that agriculture is being propelled, the growth in agricultural sector is being propelled by logging, it should be a scare.
I believe it also talks about livestock. So
livestock,
yes,
and poultry.
Yes.
Distributing 8,000 cockerel to 500 farmers, 16 per farmer. That is improvement.
Well, that's what the budget is.
It's laughable, isn't it? But, I mean, I think...
What was it before?
It was...
Zero.
Yes.
So
an improvement. What was it before?
Okay, so I want you to round up quickly so we can hear the Honorable Bagme, and I want us to move on to other areas.
It's laughable, so we should applaud this. 16 cockerels per farmer. We should applaud it.
They had how many before?
Anyway, but you see, we're looking at employment. And I was talking about the fact that, see, our own involvement in agriculture, government's own involvement in agriculture, budgetary allocation. 2013, total budgetary allocation to agriculture was 1.07%, right, of the total budgetary figure. This year is 1.1%. In fact, in 2009, it was about 3.5%, which was a bit up. Ever since, it's been declining. And so agriculture is not doing well, generally. Where agriculture is not doing well, to feed industry. And manufacturing industry grew at negative 8% in 2004. If you want to grow industry, one, you must, allow easy access to capital. Industrialists don't have it. And when they have it, interest rates are high. Utility costs, the supply is quite epileptic, and the cost is also high. It's unpredictable. Now people have to resort to generators. What is it that as a country we are doing? If industry is not doing well, if agriculture is not doing well, we'll not be able to really generate employment. So the direction should be how to generate employment, the facilitation of it.
All right.
And it doesn't appear that we are getting...
From where you sit, that you're getting that focus.
Where I mean, these are, I'm giving you the facts and figures.
Okay.
It's not where I sit.
Let's hear from the Honorable...
It's not where I sit.
I think as a country, we've gone through these things before. And we know that there is no sector that is standalone. It has to be a multifaceted approach. And so you know that agri cannot do well when you don't have good roads. Agri cannot do well when you don't have healthy people. It's the people who are going to work. It's the people who are going to farm. And so you need to look at, in trying to handle, in a sustainable manner, some of the pillars that can push agri forward. And therefore they need to focus on the road network. They need to focus on the social imperatives of the individuals who are going to work, on health, on education, on water, and these are areas that, if you look at the record of performance of government, it's very impressive. And so, yes, the government has not, in the budget, allocated more resources to the sector referred to as agric. But in the other areas that support agric, government has allocated a lot of resources to those areas. Look at the percentages in the budget. So it's not just sufficient to pick only agric and say that, well, last year this was allocated, but this year it has reduced to this, and therefore government is not focused on agric. That is incorrect.
Okay, I think some of the critics of the government, and I'll let you finish. I'll let you respond to this, and then you can add your comment. Some of the critics of the government that I have heard, monitoring discussions since the assessment of the 2 years began, is whether or not the government priorities are also the people's priorities. For instance, the president and you have, for instance, talked about a lot of projects and investments that the government has made, all in the interest of the people. But the people are saying we need jobs. The people are saying times are hard. We don't have money in our pockets. So is it a case that the priorities are mismatched? Or from where the government sits, is it the case that these are what we believe need to happen first before the other things follow?
You see, to create jobs, you need to create an environment that the private sector can thrive, that the private sector can grow. Now, there are a lot of fundamentals that cannot be provided by the private sector itself. It has to be by government. And one of the challenges we've been having is the energy supply.
Yeah.
Definitely, industry, private sector cannot move without energy. And you are aware that annually, the energy demand increases by no less than 10% annually. For a number of years, we will not be able to increase the energy generation to match with this demand. Sure. So there's a large deficit in that area. And so government is investing in the energy sector you have to stabilize the energy sector, and His Excellency has been promising us of moving it from the 2,000 to about 5,000
by 2016.
And so you have to invest there. So the resources you are going to invest there in order to support industry to grow and then create the necessary employment is what is happening now. You cannot continue to do what we were doing, these casual jobs. Even what JIDA is doing now, we are passing the law to try and get reliable sources of financing to invest in the youth so that we can create sustainable jobs. And so that is the way to go. And we believe that is why we're not taking just a 1 year sustainability approach. We are taking another medium term, about 3 years, to make sure that the foundations of the economy are well established.
Okay.
Perspective. In 1983-84, we had major power outages. No thanks at the time to the drought that afflicted the country.
Sure.
1997, we had about the same thing, and the nation was plunged in darkness. 2007, we had the same experience. In all these cases, the water levels in the Kosombo Dam had dropped significantly. That is what occasioned these major power outages. And into 2008, we had emergency power generation. And I would say that even before then, we had the resort to thermal power generation, which was started by the NDC administration, continued by Kufuor's administration. The point must be made that at the time of the entry of the NDC into power, NDC Mark II, January 2009, we all thought that we had put this, menace of power outages behind us. And in the incubation, we had systems that were capable of generating about 1,200 megawatts of power. That was bequeathed to the NDC. Unfortunately, I think there was lethargy in pursuing some of these ones, including the gas project,
which is now on stream.
So it is not the end justifies the means. What has gone into this? I think that is where
your point
the situation
is. Because we
are here because they didn't take action enough.
But is that a fair assessment, though, given that we're told, for instance, that the gestation period between putting a plant in place and actually getting it to operationalize takes time? We were here when President Kufuor commissioned Bui. It wasn't until recently that it was ready for us to use.
Absolutely, I agree. But I can give you a catalogue of projects and programs that were bequeathed, which were not followed through immediately. And some of them, they had to go into the contracts, stop them, restart, and we had all these problems.
The President says he's got a plan in place that will supply 3,000 megawatts, could take us to 5,000 megawatts by 2016. That's what he promised in the NDC manifesto. Is that satisfying?
I'm suggesting to you that I can go through the VRA plant at Tema, which was supposed to generate 110 megawatts. The Mines Reserve plant, which was to generate 80 megawatts. VRA at all plant. We have all this. All these things were incubation. They needed a short time of gestation to deliver. But in some of them, there were contractual problems. Some of them, when we had problems, they were forced to fast track the processes, and technical problems evolved. Now let's look at this, where we are now, what to do, because as the majority leader himself alluded to, energy is the spine of manufacturing industry and even of agriculture, if you want to do value addition in agriculture.
Sure.
So it's important that we get this right.
Are you satisfied with the president's position that the steps are being taken and independent power producers are coming on board, the additional generation
For how long
have we
as a nation heard this?
So you don't
For
buy
how
those?
long have we
you don't buy those?
I don't buy them.
Very well.
Actually,
let's hear.
They say it speaks louder than words.
Okay, let's hear the majority leader. I mean, he disagrees. He doesn't accept it. But from where you sit,
my colleague said so. You are saying so for him.
I'm talking about you, your position.
Yeah, he disagrees, but my colleague is not really facing realities.
Oh, really?
Because in the 2008 State of the Nation's address by His Excellency J. Kufuor, he did state the energy position of the country and what they were handing over to us. And so the main crux of his submission was that we're going to rely on the West African gas pipeline to order to reduce the cost of production of energy. Okay? And yes, they had started this T3. They had also started Bui. They were the only two reliable sources that one could talk about. The T3 had challenges, and therefore to continue it was difficult. And he mentioned the contractual challenges. Bui was still in the pipeline. It was under construction and had to be completed. And in fact, we had to source in 2010 additional funding to complete Bui. And so the only source of the energy spine was the West African gas pipeline. And that faltered. They could not supply the much needed gas. And so we went into crisis because we could not generate at that reduced cost in order to get more money to invest. Now they had also discovered oil, and there was the urgent need for us to put the necessary infrastructure in place. You cannot just discover oil and leave it to just the exploration. You have to put in investment there to be able to convert it into the various aggregates and also to get the gas and the rest done. And that is how come that His Excellency, the former president...
So from what you said, to the best of your ability, you've managed the energy situation well?
Yes. It's been managed very well. The only thing is that I think what has caused this whole problem is the fact that the information that has been given to His Excellency, the President, to be giving us timelines seems not to be accurate.
So now he's giving us timelines of 2016, 3,000 megawatts. Given the experience we've had with those previous timelines, is this something we can take to the bank and cash?
I think so, because now we're going to depend mostly on the IPPs.
Independent power producers.
And my colleague is aware that we've approved a number of the agreements recently. And with private sector, there's some amount of trust, confidence, and reliability. And we believe that by 2016, a number of the investment will have come on stream. The other aspect is that, you see, when you look at Bui cannot be operated for 24 hours for two reasons. It's the nature of the investment there, and then also the source, the water source. If you run it continuously for 24 hours, you drain the catchment area, and therefore it will falter. So it only comes during the peak period, which is usually in the night. And so later on during the day, you have to put it off.
Okay, you're still on agenda. We'll move on quickly to talk about governance in a bit. I want us to take some contributions from our viewers. This one says, so far, so good. Mahama is not doing badly. This one from Kumasi Enim says, the government will not accept the fact that they are in hardship. Let's all live and look up to God, okay? Timbuya from Paga says, I think the government did well, but it's not enough. The government can do better. We pray for the president. May God bless Ghana, our homeland. Alhaji Nura Dawana says, the Upper West Regional Hospital is ongoing. The Wa and Somba water projects are ongoing. The roads in other parts of the country too are 95% complete. Mahama is doing very well. Abdullah Abu Karim in Tamale says, the president has failed us woefully, especially we from the north. The Dumso, corruption galore is not working for us. This one says, Matilda, I'm happy that you have chosen the right panel or panelists. These are the people some of us want to be listening to. Kudos. Okay, thank you very much. This one says, I think the government has performed creditably well in the past 2 years. This is from Yambila. This is Yambila from Awoshin. And Gadre says, excellent job by far. Okay, so those are your comments. We'd like to hear more comments on a scale of 0 to 10. How would you rate the president? Let's look at governance, for instance. Honorable Chairman Samusu, many people say at least they feel secure. They see police everywhere they turn on their streets. They think that when it comes to law and order and personal security, the president has done well. Is that your assessment too?
First of all, let me provide this quick response to this energy thing. Because you see, I went through telling us that at the time of the entry of the NDC, we had in incubation a potential generating capacity of about 1,200, in addition to the 920 that Akosombo was producing. So altogether, we had close to 2,000 400.
That's installed capacity.
No, not installed. Installed and the ones that were in the pipeline.
Okay.
Right? Now, so the president says 6 years after that, I'm going to bring it up to 3,000. Effectively, we're talking about an addition of about 600.
No, he's talking about adding 3,000 additional.
To make it
We're
5,000.
currently, in terms of installed capacity, around 2,800.
Yes, but
So
how many are we able to generate? How much are we able to generate?
To use at a time.
Are we able to generate at a particular time as we speak today?
Sure.
You know, we usually around 1,400, not 1,800.
Okay.
And we need to really galvanize our efforts to secure this. Once we're able to secure this, for the time being, it may even be adequate for the time being.
Okay.
But moving on, if I have to assess the president, I will go by what the social contract that he signed with the people of this country. And that is expressed in the manifesto of the NDC. They spoke about our economic performance will be deepened and diversified to provide us a basis for the provision of the basic human needs of our people. Deepening the economic performance. Then he spoke about agriculture will be modernized to involve strong partnership and so on and so forth. And then the governance will be more thorough. So we are looking at the social contract.
Sure.
As far as I'm concerned, those should be the yardsticks. And so moving on, then he comes to talk about education. What is going to happen in the education field? Eliminate the remaining 60% of identified schools and trees and so on.
Governance.
We will go there. We will go there because we don't have time. This is,
Yes.
So you want to talk about education?
Yeah, go on.
Education, he says it's going to establish 10 new colleges of education, ensure 100% access of all children of school-going age in compliance with the constitutional requirement of
That's a long list.
It's a long list.
I don't think you can
What have we been able to achieve? And he says he's going to do this in 4 years.
Well, the president says he's
midstream,
building 50 schools.
I'm talking about what is here.
23 more.
I'm talking about what is here.
Scholarships to students.
I'm talking about what is here. What the social contract as expressed in the manifesto. Let's not move away and shift the goalposts. This is the social contract. So you judge him by this. The health, he says, double the number of community-based health planning services, the CHIPS compounds, 3,200. How many have we been able to achieve that far? Over the previous years, we were only able to build 32. Are we going to be able to do this? I'm talking about 2013. We're only able to do 32. How are we going to achieve this? It's important that it's been, raised. Health insurance, where is it? It's in the country.
As far as I know, it's still running.
Nobody is saying it's not running. But
what's
it's
the problem?
suffering from serious convulsion. You know that.
Okay. I don't know what that means. But yeah.
You know that. Then we're talking about the economy. It says an average growth rate of at least 8%. Have we been able to achieve that?
But that's admittedly, they have explained that we're now at 3.5 for 2015 for reasons that we have already outlined.
2015, how much?
3.5.
3.9.
3.9.
With the non-oil sector growing at 2.7%.
Yeah.
Are we growing the economy? So these are the matters that should confront us.
Okay, let's hear the respond to those.
Job creation. I spoke to you about manufacturing, that we are not doing well. He says he's going to provide an integrated petroleum industry based on bauxite. Where are we? A petrochemical industry based on salt.
That was all dependent on the gas plants coming.
You think he didn't know this before he just from the top of his head scribbled this?
Okay.
No, we should be honest with ourselves.
Sure.
We're talking about agriculture. I've already explained. Then
so you've talked about
governance.
Education, health. We'll come to governance in a bit. I'll let him respond to the issues raised in education, health.
Before I respond to that, let me just tell viewers that, if after 8 years, just for the purpose of argument, we just assume even what he said about energy sector is true. After 8 years, they still have their addition on stream. Okay? And they were only able to generate 920. That is after 8 years. Now he's saying after 6 years, we should be able to double that. It's not possible.
Okay.
You understand? And even those guys he gave, they were talking about retrofitting Akusumbo. And by doing so, increasing the generation capacity. That was the only reliable source they talked about, increasing generation. The others, they said they just started them and they are in the pipeline. You understand? And that's after 8 years. But the demand of the energy will not just stay and wait till after all this come on stream. And as I indicated, it was increasing by 10% annually.
Okay.
And so within 8 years, what will be the increase? And what will be the demand? And what is the shortage? And that is what we are experiencing now. He is aware that when we try getting the investment from China, the $3 billion, during the course of the negotiations and as a result of some developments, it all come on stream. And so we made challenges in trying to invest in that sector. He is aware of that. Now, if you go to issues of education, at least, we know that there are challenges, but a lot has been done in education.
What has happened?
Yes, the 200 senior high schools. Yes, it is within 4 years. We have done 2 years.
Of development from what the president tells us
are under construction.
Yes. At various levels of.
Another 50 has been awarded.
Budgeted for.
Not budgeted for, awarded.
Okay.
It's the 23 that has been
the one that's funded by the
World Bank definitely is being processed. And so you don't expect to construct 50 every year. I mean, that is not how you implement
okay, but I think he's referencing.
And so by the end of 2016, we have been able to deliver.
Okay, this is a promise that the president made in his sessional address, but he's talking about manifesto. And in the manifesto, there's a whole lot of things.
In the manifesto, we also talked about the 200.
60% identified schools under trees, for instance.
Yes.
What percentage has been eliminated 2 years
I
on?
can't, because I'm not in the sector to be able to give you the percentage. But I know a lot has been done.
What about establish 10 new colleges of education?
You recall.
Sorry, let me
You recall. No. I said I don't have the figure now.
I can tell you.
That is your figure.
It's not
and
my
that
figure.
may not be credible.
So my figure is not credible.
Sure. Oh. Definitely, I read your press conference today, and you were referring to figures, and even you are saying that the CD now is $3.33, yes, which is not true.
How much is it? I changed this morning.
Okay, I think this is a good
anyway, but I can't rely on your figures because they are not credible at all.
Oh, I see.
What is the source?
Is credible.
I've not given you any figure.
Okay, I need you to round up so that we can take a break.
Now, if you look at health, in fact, the CHIPS compound that he referred to, over 1,600 has been constructed of the CHIPS compounds. If you look at the second, what we call the tertiary level, the construction of the Cape Coast University Hospital.
Tamale, Legon.
Tamale is the first phase has been finished. The second phase. The University of Ghana one, which is being funded by the Chinese, is also under construction. The Ridge Hospital and the other regional hospitals are the secondary level of health sector. And so you need to do a whole linkages between the primary to the secondary to the tertiary.
So from what you see, there's
we have a lot of investment in the health sector,
right,
and the Ghanaians are feeling the effect of that.
Okay. Yeah, welcome back to Agenda. Let's look at some of your messages. Vincent Combat says, so far the president has done well, except for the issues of corruption, which is killing us in Ghana. This one says, so what is this desperation for power that is pushing the minority leader to do this infant politics? In fact, I will give the government 8 out of 10. Okay, that's from Lohu. Nura Dawana from WA says, we have a brand new teacher training college in Nadole, and which has just admitted its first batch. Okay, thank you. This one says, Matilda, Ghanaians are the most unfortunate people to live under the NDC in this 21st century. I blame Rawlings for bringing this serious calamity to this peaceful nation. This one says, so far so good. I think the president is doing well as far as governance is concerned. He's been a good role model for leaders in the sub-region. And I think that brings me to another area that I want us to look at quickly before we bring the discussion to a close. Governance. Your assessment, the Honourable Majority Leader?
Governance has been very good. The law and order, you all know. The police have been strengthened, more have been recruited, with better training, and you can see the visibility and accessibility program is ongoing, and the effect is what we realized during the Ulita period: less accidents, crime rate reduced, and so law and order has been very, very good. You come to the issue of Parliament as an institution is being strengthened, and recently you can see the refurbishment, other things that are being done. Job 600 is completed, is being finished now, and 2015 members will have the opportunity of having offices and some additional staff to support them to be able to deliver. If you look at the issue
but your members of parliament also complain that they don't have funds to execute their duties. The Honourable Chairman Sabonsu was just talking about that.
Well, as a country, we've not been able to properly analyze and look at the needs of parliament as an institution. The focus is always on the lawmaking and the oversight, but we also have representational responsibilities and deliberative and other functions to perform. So most of the budgets, they don't take care of our representational functions. And so when you are elected as a member of parliament, you have to be looking for your own resources to be linking up to your constituency and to be touring your constituency and maintaining the constituency till another election.
Okay.
And that is quite difficult. So some of those areas are issues we have to address.
Let's hear the Honourable Chairman. So governance, the feedback generally is that the President has done well. He's provided good leadership, at least from our viewers, for sub-region, giving us security in our homes.
A quick response to my colleague's assertion that he doesn't believe in my figures. I think it was said in the lighter side, but it's important to situate it in the context.
Yeah.
Okay.
They indicate to us that they have constructed 1,600
2 minutes. So
1,600 CHIPS compounds. In another document, they are saying that it's 1,300.
Which document?
Your own manifesto.
Read it.
but it's more than the 300 that you also mentioned.
No. I said they have said that they have constructed
wrong figures.
No, you said I was giving wrong figures. They give rather wrong figures. In their own
They've
budget.
given two conflicting figures. That's
yes,
the point.
1,600 and 1,300.
No,
so you're not sure which one to work
1,300
with.
was in the 2008 manifesto.
And what is in the 1,600?
The 1,600 is in the 2012 manifesto.
For goodness.
Okay, so there's the advice
in the NDC manifesto of 2008, we made a number of crucial decisions where you have established.
Okay, let's make this point.
Look at page 9. You will
So
see
can we go on
1,600
and address
and 1,300.
The 1,000.
You are confusing the Ghanaians. And even your own GDP growth rate. Check the budget.
Yes.
They have given wrong figures. And I'll refer you to page 158 of the budget.
That's something that we'll have to refer to.
Please.
I want us to quickly address the governance.
And then somebody says that the MPP, when you are exposing the rot in the system, they say, oh, we are desperate. This is the sing-song of 2012. But the desperation was on the government that took 8.6 billion that had not been budgeted for the running of their own elections.
Okay, I need you to address governance, and then we have to end
governance.
This
to me, I will agree with the
running
majority.
Of their own elections.
Yes.
The government of Ghana.
How do you explain the expenditure that occurred 4 months of the elections?
Okay, I hear you.
You have not offered any reasonable explanation to that as you speak. And that is a real issue that Ghanaians must confront. Governance. I agree with him that with the high visibility of the police, it has improved security. A lot need to be done though. And we need to look at for instance, the accident rates on the roads and so on. Even some personal security. And perhaps now that we are reaping the positive dividends of high visibility of police, the NDC would know that when Kufuor did same in 2009 to abate the crime wave in the system, it was not 2001. It was not because the MPP was in charge or was responsible for the killing of women, and they knew how to stop it, and that's how when they came it abated.
Okay, I need you to give me a quick scores because we have to end this. Unfortunately, President Mahama has 2 more years to turn things around.
To stem the tide of the killing of women because you arrested the serial killer.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't want us to go into this serial killer matter because we don't have time. We're out of time, gentlemen. Gentlemen,
high visibility.
Sorry, we're out of time. No. On a quick note, on a scale of 0 to 10 overall, what grade or rate would you give the president?
Well, the indicators would point to the fact that we are spiraling downwards in the issue of economic performance. Certainly, I will not rate President Mahama's administration. Okay, first of all, I should inquire from you.
0 to 10.
What does it mean?
Scale, overall assessment.
No, I'm asking.
I'm saying if you were
With
to grade the
three-
president on a scale of 0 to 10 over his 2-year performance, what would it be?
I'm interrogating this further because you know that if you write an exam and you score 1 in it, you had grade 1. It's better than grade 9.
No, this one, 10 being the highest.
Really? In that case, I'll give him 3.
Okay, very well. The Honorable Alban Bagbin, 0 to 10.
It's really
10 being the highest.
This is where it's laughable, you know. Well, definitely we haven't scored A, but we can get B plus.
Which is
plus.
what, 7,
Yes,
8?
7.
Your rating has gone to C now. I say B plus.
Okay, well, that's how we end the show tonight. Gentlemen, the Honorable Majority Leader and the Honorable Minority Leader, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you, our viewers, for sending those many, many, many text messages.